Welcome back to Excel. This is a Mental Evolution podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Seth Rose. And today is episode 17, where we are talking about the S in building our shield. So if you remember, SHIELD is an acronym for building high-performance lifestyle habits, and the S stands for sleep. So we're going to be talking about sleep, kind of some benefits and some consequences if we don't get enough sleep. I've already hit on some basic sleep hygiene tips and some shutdown routine tips in previous episodes, so go check those out if you are interested in that. And then in the future, we'll talk about a little bit more in depth with some other sleep components. And really, in my eyes, sleep is like the number one performance enhancement tool that we have to help with performance in general, really, recovery, cognition, etc. And so when we look at its importance of sleep and its importance on the brain is the only organ that actually requires sleep. And it does so that way it can kind of cleanse these so-called toxins in the brain that happen throughout the day, which I'll touch on here in a moment. But let's talk a little bit about some benefits to sleep, and there are numerous benefits. This is not an exhaustive list, but just to touch on, we know that sleep enhances our and helps with muscle growth and tissue repair. It helps improve our immunity to illnesses and disease. It helps with hormone production, particularly those that help with regrowth and testosterone for building back certain things throughout the body. It helps with weight management, so it helps kind of increase our appetite and decrease our appetite depending on where we're needing that. It helps improve our long-term memory, so it aids in memory consolidation. And we know that sleep can also help improve our physical and mental performance through things like motor learning, skill acquisition, learning new skills. In addition, it helps with increasing concentration and attention, so it can help improve your reaction time, your creativity, and even some newer research showing how sleep helps with emotional processing. Obviously, a lot of benefits with sleep. I tend to try to get the recommended hours as much as I can, because we know that the consequences of inefficient sleep are also a pretty lengthy list. So some of those might be struggling to stay awake during the day, maybe during breaks during your day, or driving, or like important tasks that you have to do to perform in your job or in your day-to-day. Oftentimes I hear of people with lack of sleep talking about, hey, Seth, like I've been experiencing this sort of like confusion lately, or like having some brain fog. So we know that inefficient sleep increases the difficulty of understanding or tracking information due to potentially impaired attention and alertness. Oftentimes we also see people experiencing higher levels of irritability, emotional dysregulation, stress and anxiety, and that's due to the decreased ability of regulating different stress hormones throughout the body and the stress response. And we also know that there's a decreased, intrinsic initiative or motivation with folks who are lacking sleep. They just don't have that drive. So obviously, tons of benefits and consequences on how they impact our cognition. And like I had mentioned before, there's so much to talk about sleep within a short period of time in 5 minutes. And so in the future, we'll talk about our brain's what's called the glymphatic system, which is a duct system to push out toxins and to kind of give ourselves that mental clarity we feel in the morning after a good night's sleep. So we'll talk about that in a future episode. And then we'll also talk about maybe some tips for traveling, those who are needing to enhance their sleep during travel or vacations or traveling for work, etc. And then we'll talk about some sleep aids, and then we'll briefly touch on caffeine, maybe talk about dosing for sustained performance, etc. But yeah, so that's the S in Shield. Obviously, we could talk for days about sleep, but thanks for sticking around. And if you have any more questions about sleep, feel free to hit me up.